After the battle ended, the land grew quiet in a slow and careful way. Smoke drifted across broken ground, thin and gray, rising from metal remains and damaged stone. The sky above was pale and still, holding no sound of ships or weapons. What had once been a place of movement and noise now felt empty, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Silence settled over the ruins, heavy but calm. Aaron Cole moved through the remains with steady steps. He was a human warrior, but there was nothing fierce in the way he walked now. His armor was worn and marked, scratched by long effort and dusted with ash. One sleeve hung loose where the material had torn, and his boots were dark with dirt. Still he stayed upright. He did not rush. He did not stop. He moved with purpose, scanning the ground and the broken walls, listening for signs of life. Aaron was tired. Every step asked more of him than the last, yet he pushed forward. He checked behind fallen metal sheets and inside cracked shelters. When he found someone breathing, he knelt beside them. He spoke in a calm voice even when the person could not answer. He used what supplies he had left, wrapping injuries with care, offering water in small sips. He never hurried even when his hands shook. The ruins stretched far in every direction. Once this place had been filled with homes, paths and shared spaces. Now only pieces remained. Some buildings leaned at strange angles. Others had collapsed fully, leaving only outlines on the ground. The air smelled of dust and burned material, sharp but fading. With each passing moment, the world seemed to grow quieter, as if accepting what had happened. Aaron guided those who could walk. He led them slowly toward a safe ridge where the ground was stable and the air clearer. He counted each person silently, making sure no one was left behind. When someone stumbled, he supported them. When fear rose, he spoke softly. His words were simple but steady. He did not promise safety he could not give. He promised effort. Far above, on a distant ridge, Sarah Lynn watched. She was an alien huntress, trained from a young age to observe before acting. Her body was still, balanced on strong legs, her outline blending with the rocks around her. Her eyes followed Aaron's movements closely. She had tracked many warriors before, learning their patterns, waiting for weakness. This human did not move like the others she had seen. Sarah expected signs of triumph or anger. She saw neither. Aaron did not raise his voice. He did not search for enemies. He searched for people. Even when he paused to rest, he stayed alert, his attention focused outward instead of inward. His pain was clear in the way his shoulders tightened, yet he never complained. To Sarah this behavior felt strange. Warriors she knew showed strength by standing above others. This human showed strength by bending down. She remained silent and unseen. From her position, she could see the full stretch of the ruined field. She noted how Aaron chose his paths carefully, avoiding unstable ground even when it meant walking farther. She saw how he checked the sky often, not in fear but in awareness. She listened to the rhythm of his steps, slow but unbroken. Time passed. The sun shifted slightly, casting longer shadows across the ground. Aaron continued moving, though his pace slowed. He stopped near a collapsed structure and heard a faint sound. Without hesitation, he climbed over the debris, using careful pressure to avoid further collapse. Inside, he found a child curled beneath a beam, shaking but alive. Aaron spoke gently. He freed the child with patient effort, lifting weight a little at a time. When the child cried, he stayed calm. When the child clung to him, he allowed it. He carried the child back toward the ridge, never once looking back at the battlefield. To him, the battle was already over. What remained was duty. Sarah felt something shift within her. She had been taught that warriors were defined by victory, by the number of enemies overcome, by the ability to stand alone. Watching Aaron, she saw something else. A warrior who remained present when the fight was done. A warrior who stayed behind while others left. The wind moved across the ruins. It carried dust and quiet sounds, small reminders that the world was still alive. Aaron reached the ridge again and helped the child join the others. He checked each face, then turned back without pause. There was more ground to cover. More silence to break. Sarah adjusted her stance. She leaned forward slightly, her focus sharpening. This human was not careless. He was not weak. He was choosing a harder path. She wondered how long he could continue. She wondered why he did. Aaron returned to the ruins. His body ached, but his mind stayed clear. He moved by habit now, guided by training in something deeper. Each life found added weight to his steps, yet also purpose. He did not think of himself as brave. He thought only of what still needed to be done. From the ridge, Sarah watched in silence. She did not move to stop him. She did not move to help him. Not yet. She observed as she had always done. But the shape of her thoughts began to change. This human warrior did not fit her understanding of strength. And that made him dangerous in a way she had never known. Below, Aaron Cole continued walking through the ruins. He did not know he was being watched. He only knew that the battle had ended and people were still alive. That was enough. Sarah followed Aaron across the harsh land for many hours after the ruins were left behind. She moved with practiced ease, stepping where the ground was firm and avoiding loose stone and sharp metal. The land beyond the broken city was wide and empty, shaped by wind and old damage. Low hills stretched toward the horizon, and the air grew dry and thin. Aaron walked ahead, unaware of the eyes that tracked him from a careful distance. He moved slowly but with purpose. Aaron carried a small pack over one shoulder. It looked lighter than before. Sarah noticed how often he paused to check its contents, then looked back toward the survivors he had guided earlier. When he reached them, he shared what little he had. Small pieces of food. Limited water. He gave first, then took only what remained. Sarah expected him to weaken quickly. He did not. The land offered little comfort. The ground was cracked and uneven, marked by long lines where heat and force had split the surface. Sparse plants clung to life, their leaves dull and rough. The wind pressed steadily from the east, carrying fine dust that settled on skin and clothing. Aaron pulled his collar higher and kept walking. His steps were uneven at times, but he did not stop for long. Sarah watched his posture change. As hours passed, his shoulders sagged slightly. His pace slowed. Yet when someone stumbled behind him, he turned at once. He adjusted his steps to match theirs. When a child complained of thirst, he knelt and offered water without hesitation. Sarah waited for anger or frustration. She saw none. She followed silently. Her training taught patience above all else. A hunt was not about speed. It was about understanding. She studied the way Aaron reacted to difficulty. When the sun reached its highest point, the heat became sharp and heavy. Aaron's face showed strain, his skin marked with dust and sweat. Still, his voice remained calm. They rested briefly near a line of broken stone. Aaron helped the group sit in the shade. He checked each person, asking simple questions. Can you walk? Are you hurt? Do you need water? His words were plain, but his attention was complete. When one person could not answer, he stayed beside them until their breathing steadied. Sarah felt doubt rise. She had expected this human to fall behind, to choose his own survival when the effort grew too great. Instead, he slowed himself for others. Each choice cost him strength. Each choice made him weaker. Yet he continued. The journey resumed. The path grew steeper as they climbed toward higher ground. The wind cooled slightly, but the effort increased. Aaron's breathing grew louder. His hands trembled when he adjusted his pack. Sarah noticed a faint limp begin to form. Still, he did not complain. At one point, Aaron stopped and looked back at the group. He counted again. His eyes lingered on each face. When he was satisfied, he nodded and turned forward. That small moment caught Sarah's attention. It was not habit alone. It was care made visible. She remembered her own training. She had been taught that strength came from control, from removing weakness, from standing above all others. Watching Aaron, she saw a different shape of strength. One that bent instead of breaking. One that spent itself freely. The hours stretched on. The land changed slowly, becoming more open, less broken. The ruins were far behind now. Aaron guided the group toward a narrow valley where the wind softened. He chose the path with care, even when it meant a longer walk. Sarah understood why. He was thinking ahead. He was planning rest, not escape. When evening came, the sky dimmed into soft colors. Aaron stopped near a low rock wall that offered shelter. He helped everyone sit and rest. He handed out the last of the food. When nothing remained, he smiled faintly as if that were enough. He drank only a small amount of water. Sarah watched closely. He was saving it for others. Night settled quietly. The air cooled and the wind slowed. The group rested, some sleeping, others watching the dark. Aaron stayed awake longer than the rest. He sat with his back against stone, eyes scanning the land. His body shook slightly with tiredness. Still he stayed alert. Sarah moved closer. She remained unseen, her steps silent. She studied his face in the low light. There was no anger there. No pride. Only concern. Only focus. She realized then that his strength did not come from battle or victory. It came from responsibility. Before dawn, the group moved again. Aaron rose with effort, steadying himself before standing fully. He waited until everyone else was ready. Then he led them forward once more. Sarah followed, her thoughts no longer fixed on the hunt. They were fixed on the question forming quietly in her mind. How long could Care carry a warrior forward? The answer walked on ahead of her. Aaron did not fall. Not yet. Dark clouds gathered without warning, rolling across the sky like a heavy curtain being pulled closed. The air changed first, growing cold and sharp, pressing against skin and breath. The wind rose in uneven bursts, carrying dust and loose stone. Aaron felt it before he saw it. He stopped walking and lifted his head, eyes narrowing as he studied the sky. He had seen storms before. This one was dangerous. He turned to the group at once. "We need shelter," he said calmly. The wind grew louder as he guided them toward a narrow rock formation ahead. The land dipped sharply there, forming a shallow natural hollow. It was not perfect, but it was better than open ground. Aaron moved faster now, ignoring the pain in his legs. He supported those who struggled, urging them forward with steady words. Fear rose among the group, but his calm voice kept it from spreading. The storm arrived fast. Wind slammed into the land with force, tearing loose dirt from the ground and throwing it into the air. Visibility dropped in moments. Fine sand stung exposed skin. The sky darkened until day felt like night. Aaron pushed the last of the group into the shelter space, positioning them against the rock wall where the wind was weakest. He counted them again. All were present. Only then did his strength finally fail. Aaron staggered back a step, then another. His knees gave way and he collapsed onto the hard ground. His body had reached its limit. Muscles that had carried him for hours released all at once. His breathing became shallow and uneven. The storm roared around him, filling the hollow with noise. Sarah watched from the edge of the chaos. She had followed until the storm forced her to take cover of her own. From a higher ledge she saw Aaron fall. For a long moment she remained still. Her code was clear. She was not to interfere. Observation only. The strong survived. The weak did not. But the human had not fallen from weakness. He had fallen after giving everything. The storm worsened. Rain began to fall, cold and heavy, mixing with sand to form thick mud. Water streamed down the rocks, pooling dangerously near the shelter. One sharp gust sent loose stones tumbling. The group huddled together, fear clear in their posture. Aaron did not move. Sarah felt tension pull tight inside her. She remembered every rule she had been taught. The huntress did not save prey. The huntress did not break balance. Yet this was not a hunt. This was something else. She watched Aaron's chest rise and fall unevenly. Too slow. Too shallow. She made her choice. Sarah moved. She crossed the open space in a blur of controlled motion, using the storm's noise to hide her approach. She reached Aaron's side and knelt, her movements quick and precise. The group gasped, startled by her sudden presence, but she ignored them. Her focus was on the fallen human. She checked his breathing first. Too weak. She placed 2 fingers against his neck, finding a faint pulse. He was alive but barely. The storm showed no sign of ending. If she did nothing, he would not last. Sarah lifted him with effort, surprised by how light he felt. She dragged him deeper into the shelter, placing him where the rock wall curved inward, offering better protection. She used her own cloak to block the wind from his face, anchoring it with stone. Aaron stirred faintly. His eyes opened for a moment, unfocused. He saw movement, a shape he did not recognize. Still, he did not reach for a weapon. His lips moved slightly. "Are they safe?" he whispered. Sarah paused. "Yes," she said. His eyes closed again. She worked quickly. From her gear, she removed a small heat unit and placed it near his chest. She adjusted his position to ease his breathing. She pressed her hands against pressure points she knew well, stimulating response. The storm continued to rage, but inside the shelter, order returned. The group watched in silence. Fear slowly shifted to awe. Sarah stayed beside Aaron through the worst of the storm. She shielded him when debris fell close. She monitored his breathing, adjusting when it weakened. Hours passed. The wind screamed. Rain battered the land. Still she remained. At last the storm began to fade. The wind slowed. The rain softened. The sky lightened from black to deep gray. Aaron's breathing steadied. His color returned slowly. Sarah finally allowed herself to step back. She looked at him for a long moment. He had never asked her name. He had never known she was there. Yet he had changed her. As the storm passed, Sarah realized her code had already broken long before she moved. It had broken the moment she understood that strength could come from care, not control. Aaron slept. He lived. The storm did not end all at once. It faded in slow steps, leaving behind a land that felt changed and uneasy. Clouds still moved low across the sky, and the wind returned in sharp bursts without warning. The ground was soaked and unstable, turning dust into thick mud that clung to boots and slowed every step. The group rested only briefly before Aaron pushed himself upright. He was weak but awake. Sarah watched closely as he stood. His movements were slow, careful, as if his body no longer fully trusted itself. Still, his eyes were clear. He looked first at the people around him, not at the sky or the land ahead. He counted again, quietly, making sure everyone was still there. "We need to move," he said. The shelter was no longer safe. Water continued to gather at its edge, and loose stone above showed signs of slipping. The storm might return at any moment. Aaron helped the group rise, guiding them toward a narrow path that led away from the hollow. Sarah moved beside him now, no longer hiding. The group accepted her presence without question. They had not gone far when the ground shook. It was not strong at first, just a deep vibration felt through the feet. Then it came again, stronger, followed by a cracking sound from the rocks above. Aaron stopped at once. He turned back toward the shelter and saw the cliff edge beginning to give way. "Go," he said. The group hesitated. Aaron stepped forward, placing himself between them and the unstable ground. "Follow the path," he said, his voice firm despite his weakness. "Do not stop." Another tremor hit. Sarah understood before anyone else did. The path ahead was narrow and slow. If everyone moved together, they would not clear the danger in time. Aaron was making a choice. She reached for him. "Aaron," she said. He turned to her and met her eyes. There was no fear in his expression. Only resolve. "They need you," he said. "You're faster. You know this land." Sarah shook her head. "You won't make it alone." He gave a faint smile. "I don't need to." The ground cracked loudly now. Stones began to fall, bouncing down the slope with force. Dust filled the air again. The group panicked, voices rising in fear. Aaron raised his voice once, clear and strong. "Move now." They obeyed. Sarah stayed for a heartbeat longer, torn between instinct and reason. Aaron placed a hand on her arm, steady despite the chaos. "Lead them," he said. "Please." She had broken her code once already. Breaking it again would not save him. Sarah turned and ran. She guided the group along the narrow path, urging them forward, shielding the weakest as best she could. Behind her, the sound of falling stone grew louder. She did not look back at first. She focused on getting the group clear. When they reached safer ground, she stopped. She turned. Through the blowing dust and rain, she saw Aaron standing alone near the breaking cliff. He had positioned himself where falling debris would be drawn away from the path. He moved carefully, shifting stone, redirecting force where he could. Each movement cost him strength he no longer had. The storm surged again. Wind roared across the open land, carrying sand and rain. Visibility dropped. Sarah strained to keep him in sight. She saw him stumble, catch himself, then stand again. He never looked toward the path. He never checked if they were watching. He trusted her. A final crack split the air. The cliff gave way. Stone and earth rushed downward in a violent wave. Dust rose thick and heavy, swallowing everything. Sarah shouted his name, but the wind tore the sound away. The shape she watched disappeared into the storm, hidden by movement and noise. Silence followed. Not complete silence, but the kind that comes after something final. The group stood frozen. Some cried out. Others covered their faces. Sarah remained still, her eyes fixed on the place where Aaron had been. The storm continued to move, but it felt distant now, as if the land itself had paused. She felt the weight of what she had seen settle inside her. Aaron had stayed. Not because he believed he would survive, but because others would. The wind slowly eased. Dust settled. The storm moved on, leaving broken ground behind. Sarah walked back toward the edge, stopping where the land had collapsed. There was no sign of him. No movement. No sound. She bowed her head. There was nothing more she could do. Sarah returned to the group and guided them onward. Her steps were steady, but something inside her had changed forever. She carried not just survivors now but a story. A truth she could not forget. Behind them, the storm erased the last trace of Aaron Cole. But it could not erase what he had chosen. Sarah returned to her people long after the storm had passed and the land had grown quiet again. The journey back was slow, filled with long stretches of thought and memory. She walked familiar paths, crossed known ridges, and followed stars she had trusted since childhood. Yet she did not feel the same. Each step carried the weight of what she had seen and what she now carried within her. When she reached her settlement, she was met with cautious looks. Her people were hunters, watchers, and survivors. They valued control, patience, and silence. Sarah had been respected among them for her skill and discipline. Still, something in her posture told them she had changed. She carried no trophies. She returned alone. That alone raised questions. She was summoned before the elders. The gathering place was open and simple, shaped from stone and shadow. Elders sat in a wide circle, their faces calm and unreadable. Others stood behind them, listening without speaking. Sarah stepped forward and stood in the center. She did not bow deeply. She did not show pride. She stood as she was. "You were sent to observe," one elder said. "You return without proof. Speak." Sarah took a slow breath. She told them everything. She spoke of the battle's end and the silence that followed. She spoke of the human warrior named Aaron Cole who still walked among the ruins when others had left. She described how he searched for survivors instead of enemies, how he shared what little he had, and how he guided the weak without complaint. Her voice remained steady as she spoke, clear and calm. She told them how she followed him across harsh land, how she expected him to fail, how he did not. She described the storm, the shelter, and the moment he collapsed only after ensuring others were safe. She did not hide the truth of her choice. She admitted she broke her code. She told them she helped him live. A quiet ripple moved through the listeners. Breaking the code was no small thing. Sarah continued. She spoke of the danger that returned, of the shaking ground and falling stone. She told them how Aaron chose to stay behind, not out of anger or duty to a flag, but out of care for people he barely knew. She repeated his words as closely as she could remember them. She told them how he trusted her to lead the others forward. She told them how she watched him vanish into the storm. Silence followed her words. No one spoke for a long moment. The elders exchanged slow glances. Some faces showed doubt. Others showed thought. Sarah did not defend herself. She did not argue. She simply waited. At last, one elder spoke again. "You call this human a warrior?" "Yes," Sarah said. "He was an enemy," another said. "No," she replied. "He was a protector." They questioned her further. They asked about his weapons, his training, his goals. Sarah answered simply. He carried tools. He carried care. His goal was to keep others alive. Nothing more. "You show no pride in this story," an elder observed. "There is none," Sarah said. "Only truth." She stood firm as doubt pressed around her. She did not raise her voice. She did not lower her eyes. She told the story as it was, without fear and without pride. She spoke not to impress but to honor. Slowly the tension eased. The elders dismissed the gathering. Some left in silence. Others stayed behind, asking quiet questions. The story spread not quickly but deeply. It moved through the settlement in low voices and shared moments. Each telling added weight, not exaggeration. In time, Sarah was asked to speak again. This time before more than elders. She stood before hunters, young and old, and repeated the story. She named Aaron Cole clearly. She did not call him enemy. She did not call him prey. She called him what he was. A true warrior. Some listened with crossed arms. Others leaned forward. A few looked away, troubled. The idea unsettled them. Strength had always meant survival at all costs. Control. Distance. Aaron's strength challenged that belief. Days passed. The story continued to spread beyond her people. Traders carried it. Travelers repeated it. The name of a human warrior who chose others over himself reached distant places. Some dismissed it as myth. Others felt something stir. Sarah watched quietly. She did not seek attention. She did not claim importance. Her role was done. She had carried the truth home and she had shared it. What others chose to do with it was not hers to decide. One evening, she returned alone to a high ridge overlooking her land. The sky was clear, filled with stars. She stood there and remembered the storm, the noise, and the moment everything changed. She spoke softly to the wind. "A warrior like that deserves to be remembered." The stars offered no answer. But the galaxy listened.